You found your way to Whispers of Crimes, a quiet corner where the shadows of the past are gently told. Here, we speak of real crimes and mysteries, not to shock or scare, but to wonder, to reflect, and maybe to help you fall asleep. So close your eyes, let your thoughts slow down, and come with me into tonight's case. She was 19, full of life, and planning her future. He was 25, charming to some, but dangerous to others. On Valentine's night in a quiet Texas town, only one of them would survive the drive home. When deputies found Livye Lewis dead from a gunshot wound, her boyfriend Matthew Edgar had vanished. No witnesses. No confession. Just a wrecked car, a shattered silence, and a trail gone cold. He would reappear days later, but that wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of something far stranger. Because before his trial could begin, Matthew Edgar disappeared again, this time for good. Convicted in absentia, sentenced to 99 years. And still missing. What really happened on that rural road? Who's helping him hide? And how does a convicted murderer vanish? Twice? This is the story of Livye Lewis and the man who's been running ever since. Chapter 1, A Valentine's Night in East Texas. It was the kind of night that should have ended in roses and quiet drives home. Valentine's Day, 2020. In the piney woods of Sabine County, Texas, young people gathered for drinks, music, and each other's company. At one of those parties was 19-year-old Livye Lewis, a bright, kind-hearted college student who had returned home for the weekend. With dreams of a career in healthcare, a big smile, and a heart that always tried to see the good in people, Livy was well-liked. But she was also involved in a complicated, off-and-on relationship with 25-year-old Matthew Edgar. Matthew wasn't a stranger to trouble. He had a bit of a reputation, quiet, withdrawn, but quick to anger when provoked. People who knew him described him as unpredictable. He had brushes with the law before, and those close to Livy had warned her about him. But like many toxic relationships, there was a pull between them that she struggled to break. That night, they were seen together talking quietly in the corner, then more animatedly. Some at the party noticed the tension. Livy had recently been trying to distance herself from Matthew, and word around town was that she might be seeing someone new. Whether it was jealousy, possessiveness, or something darker, something shifted. Around 1:30 a.m., they left the gathering together in his car. No one thought too much of it until 2 a.m. came, then 3 a.m., and someone called in a crash. Deputies found Matthew's car wrecked on the side of Farm to Market Road 83, but this was no ordinary crash. Inside the vehicle, slumped in the passenger seat, was Livye Lewis. She had been shot in the head. Her body was still warm. The driver's side door was open, and Matthew Edgar was nowhere to be found. Chapter 2, The Missing Man and the Gun That Spoke. The scene was eerily quiet. The rural road, usually empty at that hour, had become the center of a developing mystery. The responding deputy called for backup immediately, and investigators secured the site. It didn't take long to rule out an accident. Livy hadn't died from the crash. She had been executed. Her phone was found on the floor. No signs of forced entry. No signs of a struggle. And the driver's side door had been left wide open, as if the driver had fled in a panic. The question wasn't just who had killed Livy, but why. Within hours, Matthew Edgar became the prime suspect. His name had already surfaced in connection to prior domestic disputes, and now he had vanished. The car was his. The route was familiar to him. Livy was last seen with him. And the murder weapon? That was the kicker. Authorities traced the bullet to a .380 caliber handgun 1 that Matthew legally owned, but was now missing. For 2 days, no one saw him. He didn't call his family. He didn't show up to work. And the fear that he might do something else, or had already done something else, began to spread through the community. A bolo alert went out. Law enforcement expanded their search to the woods and surrounding towns. Then, just as mysteriously as he had vanished, Edgar was found hiding out at a relative's house in Hemphill. He had visible injuries, cuts, bruises, signs of a crash, but he claimed to remember nothing. According to him, everything was a blink. He had blacked out. He didn't know where Livy was or what had happened that night, but investigators weren't buying it. He had walked away from a dead woman, hidden for 2 days, and now conveniently couldn't remember anything. A convenient lie or a dangerous unraveling. Chapter 3. Pieces of a shattered relationship. To understand what happened that night, investigators turned to the history between Livy and Matthew. What they found painted a disturbing picture. Text messages, voicemails, social media posts all showed a young woman who had grown tired of emotional manipulation and control. Livy had tried to end the relationship multiple times. She had confided in friends and family that she was scared. Not of violence necessarily, but of Matthew's behavior. He didn't take rejection well. He would beg her to stay, cry, promise to change. And when that didn't work, he would threaten to hurt himself. She once told a friend that Matthew knew how to make her feel like the bad guy, even when she knew she was doing the right thing. There were no formal restraining orders, no police reports of physical abuse, but the signs were there. Livy's loved ones recalled moments when she seemed distant, distracted, nervous. She stopped posting pictures with him. She talked about wanting to move on. But like many in toxic relationships, she had trouble cutting the cord completely. And on Valentine's night, when she got into that car with him, maybe it was just for one last conversation. One last attempt at closure. She never got that chance. As prosecutors prepared for trial, they built their case on the emotional timeline, the forensic evidence, and the bullet that matched Matthew Edgar's missing gun. He was arrested and charged with murder. The evidence was strong, but Matthew? He was quiet, calm, and as the court date neared, something was brewing again. Chapter 4. The disappearance before the verdict, October 24th, 2021. Trial was about to begin. Jury selection was underway. The court expected Matthew Edgar to arrive on time, as he had for prior pretrial hearings. But he didn't. He was nowhere to be found. At first, it seemed like a delay. Maybe a misunderstanding. But as hours passed and no one could locate him, it became clear. He was gone. Panic swept through Sabine County. Not just because the accused murderer had vanished, but because this time it was clear he had planned it. He hadn't run out of fear. He had walked away knowing what was coming. Edgar had been out on bond, under monitoring, but the system had failed. The sheriff's office scrambled to issue a warrant. The U.S. Marshals joined the search. They believed he might still be in the area, hiding in the thick woods he knew like the back of his hand. Others feared he'd crossed state lines. There were even whispers that someone close to him, family or friends, might be helping him. Days passed. No sightings. Then weeks. Then months. All while the trial proceeded without him. Yes, in Texas, you can be tried in absentia, and the case against Edgar continued. Chapter 5. A conviction in the empty chair. In January 2022, prosecutors laid out the story before the jury, without the defendant present. It was surreal. The man accused of killing Livye Lewis was absent, but his name hung heavy in the courtroom. Jurors heard from forensic experts, from Livy's friends and family, and from law enforcement. They saw the messages. They studied the bullet trajectory. They listened to the timeline. And through it all, they began to understand the kind of pressure Livy had been under and the final, fatal choice she made when she got into that car. The defense, with no defendant present, had little to work with. They leaned on reasonable doubt, but there wasn't much of it left. The verdict was unanimous: guilty. Matthew Edgar was sentenced to 99 years in prison for the murder of Livye Lewis. But he wasn't in a cell. He wasn't shackled. He was out there somewhere, a guilty man now legally a fugitive, a killer on the run. Chapter 6. The Ghost in the Pines. The manhunt ramped up. The U.S. Marshals Service took the lead. They knocked on doors, raided homes, canvassed wilderness areas. But Edgar knew the land. The woods of East Texas are dense, isolated, and easy to vanish into. It was a survivalist stream and a fugitive sanctuary. There were reported sightings: a shadow in the trees, a man walking along the road at night, someone camping deep in the forest. Each tip was chased. Each lead ended in a dead end. No confirmed sightings, no arrests. Nothing but speculation and frustration. Locals began to fear he might never be found. Some believed he was getting help food drops, burner phones, shelter. Others thought he might already be dead, having taken his own life in the forest. But no body was ever found. And then the rumors started. Whispers that Edgar had slipped across state lines, that he had made it into Louisiana, that he was using a fake name, working small jobs, living in plain sight. But even with national coverage and wanted posters, Edgar remained a ghost. And with every day that passed, justice felt farther and farther away. Chapter 7. A Fugitive's Shadow. As of now, Matthew Edgar remains at large. Convicted in absentia, a 99-year sentence waiting for him. A young woman buried far too early. A family still grieving, still fighting, still pleading with the public to keep Livye's name alive. Her mother continues to speak out. He didn't just kill Livye, she once said. He took our peace. And as long as he's out there, we can't move forward. The FBI and U.S. Marshals still list Edgar as a wanted fugitive. There is a reward for information leading to his arrest, but more than 3 years have passed. The trail is cold. The silence is deafening. And yet justice hasn't closed the book. It waits. It watches. Somewhere out there, Matthew Edgar is still running. But time has a way of catching up. Eventually, even ghosts leave footprints. That's all for tonight's story. Another thread in the web of true crime, quietly unraveling as the night goes on. If you're still with me, thanks for listening. And if sleep has already taken you, may your dreams be peaceful and your mind at ease. I'll be here next time by the fire with another story waiting to be told. Good night, and don't forget to lock your doors.